here we have to be very careful and understand what is happening exactly. Otherwise, we cannot understand the animation itself. Here, there is a chain of the animation. So first of all, we are just forwarding our height animation. Height animation is used to control the height of the container. And in the second part, we have the rotation, as you see, and after the rotation we are chaining height animation, so that is called chained animation. Basically means one animation is starting after the another animation is completing itself, so that is the chained animations. We have height animation. Now we have to create the rotation. In order to create a rotation, we will need second controller. Okay, here I will create my second controller, and again that's gonna be animation controller, and here that's gonna be rotation controller, and also I will need the animation for the rotation. Here it is gonna be double, so I'm using double because the rotation itself is changing between the double values. For example, between 0 and 180. So that's gonna be rotation animation. Then let's go to initializing them. So here I'm just going to say rotation controller, so that's gonna be animation controller, and vsync is gonna be this. Duration is also gonna be duration like this, 500 milliseconds. Okay, secondly we will create the animation. So rotation animation equals to twin of double, and we will just going to animate our rotation controller. And I would like to use curved animation. I love this curved animation instead of just using raw animation. So as a parent, I'm just going to use rotation controller, and the curve, currently let's make it bounce out. Here our animation is ready, but we have to say where you should begin and where you should end. So beginning should be 0 because we are starting from our current position, and the current rotation value is 0, and end of it is gonna be 360. So here I will say end and 360. This angle is basically full circle, and if you want, there is another case where we can use the P. So P is also 180, and we can import it from the math library, and here if we multiply the P we will get the 360. That is the same thing, just because that's more understandable. Now where we will implement the rotation controller. So we can use another animated builder, but this time this animated builder is gonna be used on the plus, on the elevated button, which is add button, because we want to rotate the add button, and also we want to change the color of it, so on. So that's why here I will wrap this using the builder. So that is the trick I'm using, because there is no directly animated builder. That's why that way I actually like to implement it. So we need the animation. We will say rotation controller. Here we can say child, or actually if we are not interested on this value, we can just basically say underscore. So we don't care about the value of it, basically. That's why I'm using underscore. Now how can we implement the rotation? For rotation, there is a transform widget, which is very necessary to understand. Transform is used to rotate elements or scale, translate, so on. So we need, first of all, identity. So what is this identity matrix? So matrix 4 dot identity means we first want to initialize it, okay? Just take it from the initial position. Then we are going to rotate it. So here there is a rotation. If we check animation here, you can see that animation is happening on z-axis. Z-axis means from your face or eyes to the computer. So that is the z-axis. So we want to rotate it on that axis basically. An angle. As I said, we are just going to be using rotation animation value. So here we created that. We are starting from the 0 and we want to rotate it 360 degrees. So that's why here, instead of the angle, I'm gonna use the value of rotation animation value. So here, if I restart, and here, okay, we get the problem. Here we are using the single provider mixin. Single means we are going to use just one animation on the description info widget, but now we have two controllers, we have two animations. We are using two provider tickets here, the first one for height controller and the second for the rotation controller. Basically, we will solve that by deleting the single and we're gonna use the ticker provider state mixin. Now, if I restart, no any problem. Now, if I click to add button, nothing is gonna happen because we have to forward our animation. Here, we will come to the transform and in the elevated button, we have the on pressed. And here, on pressed of this button, we're gonna take the rotation controller and we are just going to forward it. Now, if I restart it and click to the add to chart, now animation is happening. And the second animation, let's see. Okay, we get the animation. So why is that happening like this? Because the alignment of the transforming is left center, I think. So if I go inside of the transform, there is alignment, and we have to use center. Currently it is, I think, left center, but now we just need to use center itself. And if I click to this one, as you see, this happened. If I click to that again, as you see, is not happening again because we are just forwarding and animation is done. And how many times I click to this button, it doesn't matter because the animation is done. And if I want to forward animation every time I click to this elevated button, first of all, I have to reset and then we have to use forward. And these two dots are used for this kind of cases. So when you want to cascade callback of the functions like the reset or forward, you can use the double dots like that. Now, if I click to add, now as you see, I can click to that. It is happening every time I click because I'm resetting and then I'm forwarding. But the curve of this animation is different. Here you can see that this is happening very slow. Okay, here it is happening very slow and there is no any bunch effect like that. So first of all, we have to decrease the duration of the animation. So here, instead of the milliseconds of 500, I'm just going to use for example 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, and the curve maybe can be ease, so you can just change it like that now. So that was very slow, so I'm just going to say 1 seconds. If I click again, let me take milliseconds, try the 500 again. Okay, that's kind of fine for me, there is no problem. And secondly, the color is changing when it is rotated, so we have to also control that. Here, as you see, after rotation, color of the button is changing to green, and also the color of the text inside of the button is changing from the blue to white. So we have to understand these scenarios, otherwise we will not understand the animation itself. So let's start implementing this. First of all, we can use the rotation animation value, okay, to check if the rotation animation is done. Then we have to change the color of the button. So here, color of the button is white, and how can we change it? Here we can use the style, and here there is a background color, and we are just going to say if the rotation animation value is 2 multiplied by p, I want to have green. So what if the rotation animation value is 2p, which means button is rotated full circle, and now we can change it to green. Otherwise, let's make the color to white. And the problem is we cannot assign the color, we have to use material state property instead of the color. So I will take the green, and here I will say material state property dot all and use the colors dot green, and also for the colors dot white I'm just going to say material state property dot all, and here I'm just going to use white. Now if I restart the application, click to this, as you see the color is changing, and also the color of the text should be changed when the animation value is 2p. So that's why inside of the color of the text I'm just going to use the Turner operator, and I will say if the animation is done, so the color of the button text should be white, otherwise it should be light blue. Okay, now let's try it. Click to the add. Now it is happening as we want. If I check the animation here, after clicking to the add button, there is a little bit of delay. In order to show that basically we are sending requests to the API, because when we add this in the original version of the application, it should send request to the API in order to let the database that we are adding this product. So that's why there should be a little bit of delay. We can create this effect using feature delayed. Here inside of the onPressed, I'm just going to use feature delayed, and here duration is gonna be milliseconds of 200 maybe, and after 200 milliseconds I'm just going to forward it. Okay, I'm not going to do it immediately, that's why. Now if I come back and try again, as you see a little bit of time is passing and then animation is happening.